Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Pac-Man World for the Game Boy Advance, or should I say, the watered down version of Pac-Man World, but that's besides the point. So, last time, we've essentially manage able to finish up all 3 levels in the Pirate World. Now, despite the fact that we did those levels okay enough, despite the fact that on the 2nd level, alongside with the 3rd level, we've come across into quite a few deaths here and there, mainly because the isometric view platforming just kind of feels a bit underwhelming and also sucks at the same time. But that's just me anyway. Although, luckily though, we did manage able to rescue one of our Pac-Man's friends, which appears to be Polka from Dig Dug. So yeah, and on top of that, there's no boss fights to be found in this version of the game, just because, like I said before, it's probably because of the handheld's limitations, or perhaps even maybe it's due to the cartridge limitations or something like that. So anyway, today for this video is about the fact that we're going to be continuing things on and move on to the next world, which does manage to take place in a ruins world, starting with Crisis Cavern. So just like the forms of how it does it in the original version of the game, including Pac-Man World Repack, there's only 2 levels we can able to explore into, and like I said before, it's about the fact that the huge bonus point for that is, excuse me, I did not expect that particular depth perception right there, and I did not realize I somehow lost a life right there. Oh jeez. You see what I mean about the fact that the actual perspective sometimes feels a bit too messy at one point, but that's besides the point. So anyways, as I was saying about the fact that huge bonus points when it comes to this version to me though, that thank goodness we don't have to worry about trying to take care of the forms of Anubis Rex, because my goodness, that boss fight in the original version of the game is really tough, I'm not gonna lie. Although thankfully it does have checkpoints every time whenever you move on to the next phase, but still, it's incredibly frustratingly difficult. So anyway, also I just realized about the fact that I'm having a hard time trying to able to actually butt bounce that particular creepy spider bug, because again, the depth perception is a bit weird sometimes, but usually relatively speaking though, that's as far as I can try to say about this, I guess. So anyways though, a few things I want to talk about is about the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 15th of September today, in some cases in 2024 today, so naturally speaking I was about the fact that tomorrow will be to the point where we're now going to be ended up in the halfway point in terms of September, before we move on to the 10th month, which appears to be October. So because of that though, perfect opportunity about the fact that you know how the fact that Maxi is still working on Luigi's Mansion 2, and by that time when October rolls around, obviously though that'll be a huge opportunity that he can able to actually finish up Luigi's Mansion 2 in just before, in about a couple of days before Halloween and all that stuff, before we move on to the next holiday celebration, which appears to be, well, Christmas, obviously. So either way, and it's also worth noting for actually, is about the fact that like what Ray the Flying Squirrel has already mentioned about this ever since enjoying the forms of on Thursday, that yes indeed about the fact that I can't even believe we now ended up in iPhone 16 now, which not just by the forms of just iPhone 16, but also much like the forms of how it does it in last year for iPhone 15, that we expect able to actually get ourselves not only the normal version of iPhone 16, but as well as the forms of iPhone 16 Plus, in addition to the forms of iPhone 16 Pro, as well as Pro Max as well. And as far as I can tell about the fact that obviously though there's only one new feature that has been added for that particular iPhone once it's going to be releasing in everywhere else, for the sake of the forms of not only the United States, but as well as the forms of the UK as well, which fundamentally speaking though is about the fact that we've only got about 5 more days to go until iPhone 16, alongside with iPhone 16 Plus, alongside with the forms of iPhone 16 Pro, and finally iPhone 16 Pro Max will be releasing on the 20th of September, in just around 6 days before The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom will be releasing during that specific period. In addition to that though, 3 days, or technically 4 days before Disney's Epic Mickey Rebrush, which is of course a remake of the original Epic Mickey, did originally came out on the Nintendo Wii back then in 2010, at least for I've noticing that already. So either way, despite the fact that Tiana did already mention about that, and dang it, I somehow died by mistake, but that's okay though, because hopefully though, about the fact that once we get to the later levels, I'm hoping anyway, that the extra lives will be generous enough. Well, it might be nowhere near as generous enough compared to the forms of how it does in the original version of the game to me though, including Pac-Man World Repack, mind you. So anyway, oh yeah, we got able to avoid a lot of those fireballs coming from the coming out of nowhere. So thankfully though, this particular part should be pretty much a piece of cake basically. So not really hoping about the fact that this particular world won't give me that much trouble, unlike the forms of how it does it in the pirate world, because again, the depth perception really messed me up beyond belief. And then once we get to the forms of Pac-Man World 2 on the Game Boy Advance at some point until next year, oh man, you might see nothing yet. Especially like I said before, you have to deal with passwords without utilizing save data and stuff like that. So you have to utilize the passwords. Especially it's kind of inconsistent about the fact that the Game Boy Advance version of Pac-Man World 2 did came out in 2002, while the file save data still exists during that time. Specifically, one of those examples being Super Mario Advance series of games, ranging from Super Mario Advance 1, Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario World, and Yoshi's Island, Super Mario Advance 3, and of course, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. Those games do have save feature, whilst unlike Pac-Man World 2, does not. So because of that though, that's definitely a missed opportunity. At least same applies with the forms of Sonic Advance 1, as well as Sonic Advance 2, and even Sonic Advance 3, and heck, even with the forms of Sonic Pinball Party, and of course, Sonic Battle, at least for those Sonic games on the Game Boy Advance, does have save files, so, or a save feature to be more specifically, including the Pokemon games, as well as the Kirby games, like Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, and Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. I almost said Nightmare in Dreamland again, because I already know for a fact that it's kind of odd about the fact that Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland still has not been listed for the likes of the forms of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack or anything. Well, that's besides the point, I guess. So either way, also, something's worth noting for actually, there's also yet another Apple project has been already worked on, and that's also going to be releasing around the exact same day, as in iPhone 16 basically, and as a result we're about to be getting Apple Watch Series 10, and on top of that there's also going to be Apple Watch Ultra 2, and there's also going to be AirPods 4, so yeah, that's short something, and there's also AirPods Max, which from the look of it though, it's shaped pretty much exactly like a traditional headphones, or specifically a headset, if you managed able to try to purchase the forms of some normal types of headphones, rather than just, you know, wireless Apple headphones or something like that. So, I do remember looking at it though, well, usually relatively speaking, it has been about quite a few days since I actually utilized to listen to my music on my phone, plus mainly because no matter what though, is about the fact that at this point in time, that the actual temperature-wise at this point in time is actually going to get much, much lower these days. So because of that though, I wasn't expecting this much, especially concerning for the fact that autumn is just around the corner. So yeah, that's as far as I can think about it. So also about the fact that yes indeed, there was some sad news indeed. That did happen during around that time, and during the forms of being the 9th of September actually, around the same time as when the Sega Dreamcast celebrates its 25th anniversary, specifically in North America, which as a result though, yeah, it's very unfortunate about the fact that James Earl Jones, that he did a voice of not only Darth Vader from the Star Wars movies, but of course Mufasa from the likes of The Lion King, not only the original, but that terrible live-action counterpart to me though, which I still stress enough, about the fact I still despise the live-action counterpart of this beloved classic, because still to me though, the animated classic is still as a classic indeed, especially it's almost like a, well, or should I say, huge masterpiece when it comes to the forms of animated films during that time, but now it's been taken over thanks to the forms of Inside Out 2, which is still is the #1 box office department when it comes to not only for 2024, but it's also about the fact of the highest grossing animated films ever when it comes to the actual box office earnings. So, speaking of which though, it's about the fact that I believe, for those of you who lived in the UK, that I believe we've only got about 15 more days to go until Inside Out 2 is going to be releasing on DVD, including Blu-ray as well as the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray as well. But I already know for a fact that I'm pretty sure the Americans already received the film earlier than any forms of how it does it compared to us. So, but I have no idea of when that particular Inside Out 2 film is going to be releasing on the forms of Disney Plus. So my guess is it probably has to be coming out at some point in, I don't know, by the end of the year, or perhaps even maybe in 2025, if depending on the forms of how effective Disney Plus is actually doing well or something like that. Well, it has been about quite a few days ago since I actually have used Disney Plus, since when I somehow watched certain episodes of The Simpsons, and on top of that watching certain films, likely based off from specific worlds from Kingdom Hearts that has ever appeared on, and occasional other films I do enjoy. Oh, apart from those side things though, there's only one thing I forgot to address about this, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, well, fundamentally speaking though, it's about the fact that it seems that ever since about a couple of months ago, that it seems kind of weird to be able to actually see Chicken Run has been added to Disney Plus, specifically the UK version. Well, suffice to say though, that film is now removed, which that'll be a coincidental thing about the fact that, well, note to self Disney Plus, do not add a DreamWorks movie on there, because obviously though, that was basically as like a rivalry kind of thing ever since in Journey Films in 1998, likely for instance with Ants and A Bug's Life, and you probably get the idea what I'm talking about. So either way though, so yeah, lesson learned, Disney Plus, do not add certain films that's been released on DreamWorks, because it's obviously though, things get a little bit more complicated here and there. So either way though, still, it's incredibly odd ever since about a couple of months ago, you know? So, but yeah, aside from all that stuff though, it's about the fact that, back to what I was saying about the films of that particular, the legendary actor I was on about earlier, which is of course, James Earl Jones. So, at the very least though, he was, 93 years old, so yeah, it's a kind of a good age though at the end, especially concerning for the fact that, well, obviously though, it's about the fact that, again, as I said before, he's the most legendary actor of all time, ever since enjoying the films of in the Star Wars movies, as well as the films of, you know, The Lion King original, and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's as far as I can try to say about that particular sad news indeed, but that's besides the point. So, anyways though, speaking of which though, is about the fact that when it comes to films department though, it may look like about the fact that we're about to be getting ourselves a competition has been going on, specifically the UK version of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 the movie. And what do I mean by that though? Well, basically though, is about the fact that recently though, BBFC website has recently updated something. That's what appears to be about the fact that if you go into bbfc.co.uk, you're able to actually come across into that familiar competition thing. That's what it appears to be, create the card competition in 2024. So basically though, it's about the fact that they're trying to able to actually ask certain kids, specifically aged 4 all the way up to 11, to able to actually able to design the very own BBFC black card, which you know what I'm talking about, what the black card stands for. Basically though, it's about the fact that when the film actually starts on the cinema, obviously though, it actually tells us how old you have to be in order to able to see the film, alongside with the forms of certain information has been added. Well, you'd probably only know what I'm talking about. And relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that I'm pretty sure about the fact that the actual concept was not the first time we actually come across into something like this. That happens in the past as well. Like, if I recall correctly, we somehow come across into that particular event for 3 films in the past, ranging from, let's just say, one of those films was actually Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and there's also Jurassic World Dominion, and same applies with the films of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So this is technically the 4th time that basically though, yeah, certain films will get their custom-made black card before the actual film actually starts. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool though. Even though it's a shame about the fact I can't participate because obviously though I'm 26. So because of that though, oh well, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. But I'm very curious of how these designs actually looks like once the actual film comes out on a big screen. So either way though, and also straight to the point though, is about the fact that one thing I did not expect, that the DVD release of Knuckles, alongside with the Blu-ray release as well, I guess, that's basically the DVD release on Knuckles the series on the UK version. Well, I did manage to able to look upon the actual unboxing video of that particular physical media of Knuckles the series. Apparently though, the DVD version is going to contain not one but 2 discs in one. So as a result though, I believe that 2 discs were able to actually feature 3 episodes, and as far as disc 2 is concerned, well, obviously though, in addition to able to having that particular, well, 3 episodes in particular, and also some special features. So yeah, that's the only thing I want to address about this. So anyways though, also about the fact that PlayStation 5 Pro now exists, especially concerning for the fact that after about a year ago that we've already got ourselves PlayStation 5 Slim, so now during the Evolves event 2024 we're about to be getting PlayStation 5 Pro. And you know what's the actual major differences with the PS5 Pro this time? Well, actually quite a lot, ranging from the fact that, well, first of all, he did mention about the fact that there's going to be a larger GPU, so relatively speaking, that's a massive improvement. And on top of that, they also mentioned advanced ray tracing, and there's also going to be AI driven upscaling. So yeah, and also certain performance has been upgraded for a certain amount of games, ranging from Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, as well as the forms of Marvel Spider-Man 2, as well as the forms of The Last of Us Part 1, at least as far as I can tell, in addition to the forms of Horizon Forbidden West, or Horizon 2 Forbidden West, if I like to call it that. And it does look great, especially concerning for the fact that, well, the actual visual detail is much more advanced compared to the forms of how it does it on any other models for the PlayStation 5 nowadays. And in terms of the forms of how the PlayStation 5 Pro's design-wise, well, it looks incredibly similar to Slim, except the fact that the actual black fence is actually a lot more thicker than the forms of how it does it on Slim version, where basically though the Slim version actually contains the actual black line for likely or so to try to able to adjust your custom-made colors for your PS5 system or something like that. Although I still wouldn't guarantee to able to get myself my PS5 for this year, but maybe in the future I will do. But it's already depending on the fact that the actual pricing is super ridiculously high at this point, even if you try to get the system brand new, unless if you try to able to actually guarantee to get yourselves the second-hand condition of the PlayStation 5. Well, that's besides the point, I guess, especially concerning for the fact I'm still hoping to get Dragon Ball Sparking Zero once that game comes out, even though it's kind of unfortunate I can't get it in day one though, sadly though, because obviously that was about the fact that, well, we still haven't got the Nintendo version of that particular game, unless if they'll try to able to list it later for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch successor, not Nintendo Switch 1, mind you, because obviously that was about the fact that we still got a couple of games left, and the fact that no matter what though, we've only got about 11 more days to go until The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was going to be releasing. So, and in addition to that though, it's about the fact I'm pretty sure we've only got about 32 more days to go, at least if I recall correctly, that Super Mario Party Jamboree is going to be releasing. So yeah, it's actually getting really close until those 2 games is going to be fastly approaching. So yeah, that seems pretty cool and everything. So anyways though, oh, speaking of Super Mario Party Jamboree though, I actually did manage to find out that basically though, it's about the fact that yes indeed, there are some more preview videos of that particular game in mind, showing off the forms of how the game actually looks like. In addition to that though, it's about the fact that yes indeed, about the fact that they borrowed the exact same elements from, not only for the sake of the forms of Super Mario Party, but as well as Mario Party Superstars. And what do I mean by that though? Well, apparently though, the bonus mini game about the fact that you know exactly what I'm about to say, that the bonus minigame decides to return Sense Superstars, which occasionally though, once you get to the next minigame or something like that, on your next turn or something like that, if you manage to win a certain minigame, your coins will be doubled if you win first or anything else like that. So nothing new from here, especially how ridiculously easy to get coins yet again. So this is technically now the third time that the economy was a bit kind of unbalanced at one form or another. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that that's something I still need to try to get used to with the forms of the economy system, whilst unlike the forms of how it does in the old school Mario Party days, where basically though that the economy is basically well balanced. So yeah, that's as far as I was able to expect to mention about that. And also, for what I've seen the actual gameplay footage of the actual preview screens, obviously though is about the fact I do somehow managed able to found out that you're able to actually, when you managed able to start the game off or something like that, as soon as that game comes out, I believe you're able to actually have the ability to actually get all 20 characters unlocked from the start, although there is technically 2 unlockable characters, something very similar to the forms of how it does it in not only for Mario Party 7, but as well as Mario Party 8 and Mario Party 9 and even Mario Party 10. So, but the only difference has been is about the fact that since in Mario Party 7, as well as Mario Party 8 and even Mario Party 9, all of these unlockable characters are entirely brand new playable characters, which are Pauline and Ninja. So because of that though, I'm sure about the fact that we'll get into more further details about that particular topic until whenever we decide to do our Let's Play of Super Mario Party Jamboree at some point. But I don't think we can probably do that in during the forms of when the actual game releases on the other hand though, because obviously though I do need some bit of practice for not only for returning mini games for its control differences, but also with physics change, and on top of all that stuff though, just trying to demonstrate some brand new mini games off screen. So either way though, I'm sure I'm still basically excited about that, especially concerning for the fact that, well, believe it or not though, the last time we actually did done the actual Mario Party Let's Play was back in 2022 when it comes to Mario Party Superstars. I keep thinking about the forms of the original Super Mario Party for some reason, because that did happen since in 2019. So because of that though, yeah, it may look like about the fact that I'm glad to be back on Mario Party games again, especially concerning and during around that time that recently though is about the fact that me, Sonic and Mega Man and Mario have recently played Mario Party 7 for a bit, just to ensure for the fact that we can able to actually have ourselves some really dang good times with the actual game of Mario Party 7, although mind you about the fact that I managed able to win the actual game of course, because I did somehow select Boo, because relatively speaking I was expecting to try to play as Wario, but chances are though is about the fact I just love utilizing the magic orb, because you know it allows you to able to double up your movements depending on what number you get. So, and Toad can be also be pretty useful too, alongside with Toadette as well, because both Toad and Toadette can only use triple shroom orb. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool and everything, which you probably already know what I'm talking about, especially concerning for the fact that back in 2022 that Ray the Flying Squirrel did indeed manage able to did the actual Let's Play of Mario Party 7 after all. If you guys want to check it out, then you can. So, but I digress. So, also, about the fact that ever since in the 6th of September or something like that, basically that was about the fact that there's this new PlayStation 5 game has already came out, and that's what appears to be Astro Bot. And for what I've seen the gameplay footage, including the actual review scores of Astro Bot, not only it did incredibly well, but also it really inspires me, and I'm very impressed of how that game actually looks. Especially the actual review scores, so far anyway, that Metacritic did receive the game as in 94 out of 100, so it's really dang amazing. And so applies with the forms of Open Critic as well, and that could be also applies for the fact that, well, in terms of Open Critic though, it did somehow receive the game 100%, so yeah, that's actually very impressive, especially on the PlayStation 5 standards. IGN receives the game 9 out of 10, which is pretty good, and on top of that, PC Mac receives the game 4.5 out of 5, so yeah, that's actually pretty swell. Push Square receives receives the game 10 out of 10, and Sack News also receives the game 10 out of 10, and Tech Radar receives the game 4.5 out of 5, and The Guardian did receive the game 5 out of 5, and Video Games Chronicle receives the game also a 5 out of 5, and also VG247 also receives the game 5 out of 5, and even with Hardcore Gamer receives the game 4.5 out of 5, and on top of that, GameSpot receives the game 9 out of 10, and Eurogamer receives the game 5 out of 5, and yeah, there's so many 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s, and even 5 out of 5, and even with 4.5 out of 5. Then I will say though, until I decide able to go after the PlayStation 5 at some point in the future, I think that Astro Bots might actually interest me, especially considering for the fact that not only it's entirely interesting, but it's also filled to the brim with a lot of PlayStation Easter eggs, just like the Phones of Power does it on Astro's Playroom and all that stuff, which obviously though you do get the game with the Phones of the PlayStation 5 itself, so either way though, it's a shame about the fact that there's no physical release of Astro's Playroom or anything else like that. So either way though, yeah, once I get the PlayStation 5 though, eventually at some point in the future, then I'm obviously definitely going to be trying to go after Astro Bots no matter what, because it looks really, really awesome to me, especially alongside with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, if depending on about the fact that if Nintendo Switch successor is going to able to get that game at some point, I have no idea, because obviously though it's about the fact that maybe we'll hear more about it during at some point. Oh, okay, I accidentally activated the trap somehow. But then again, the depth perception is not that very great, to be honest with you, which I've already on about that since in yesterday though, but I suppose we'll have to able to stick around with it, I guess. So anyway, and I think this is the level right here about the fact that we can able to actually rescue Pac Dog. So hopefully though we'll try to rescue him somehow. So anyway, also about the fact that the actual release date for the PlayStation 5 Pro has been confirmed, and believe it or not though, it's actually going to be releasing around the exact same day as in Mario Luigi Brothership is going to be releasing on the Switch. So because of that though, and on top of that, when it comes to the price tag though, my goodness, PlayStation 5 Pro is going to be the most expensive PlayStation console we can ever conceive. Do you know how much exactly it's going to cost? Well, if you live in America, it's going to cost you $700, and meanwhile in the UK, it's also going to be cost around £700. So because of that though, yeah, it's going to be a lot more pricey. And meanwhile in European countries, ranging from France, Spanish, or Spain, or Italy, or anything else like that, it only costs about almost roughly 800 euros. I mean, I get it because of how the fact that it's much more advanced compared to the phones of how it does it on the 2020 model of the PlayStation 5, including PlayStation 5 Slim during the phones of it last year in 2023. So yeah, it's pretty crazy kind of thinking about it. Especially what makes this a little bit cooler to me though, is that much like the phones of how it does it in, let's just say for instance, on the PlayStation 2 for instance, or PlayStation 3, and heck, even with PlayStation 4, that we're about to be receiving 3 different models of these specific systems. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell. Although, relatively speaking, I highly doubt I don't know if I can able to get myself my PlayStation 5 Pro, because again, it's a bit of a tough choice for me to able to try to get either the original PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 5 Slim. So either way though, chances are though, decisions are pretty difficult, I'm not gonna lie for saying this, especially considering for the fact I'm still really expect that we might able to actually hear more about the forms of Nintendo Switch successor at some point. But either way, so now we've got the actual key, so that means we can now free the Pac Dog. So either way though, and I'm sure about the fact that we'll explain more details about the forms of some level cuts in this version of the game in particular once we get to next weekend or anything else like that, because relatively speaking, it's just about the fact that I'm still basically excited to see some new announcements they somehow bring during the forms about the fact that for this week in particular went so far. Like we somehow we're about to be getting the new iPhone, which appears to be iPhone 16, and on top of that, we're about to be getting a new model for the PlayStation 5, now called PlayStation 5 Pro. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool, and it's also kind of cool about the fact that, well, obviously though, like I said, we're about to be having multiple models for PlayStation systems nowadays. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool and everything. So anyway, so that pretty much does it for this level in particular. It's just about the fact that we now ended up on the final stretch of Manic Mines, at least as far as like the level we actually ended up in right now. So I mean, for the most part though, it's about the fact that we have to once again try to dodge those godforsaken fireballs that just sometimes though, that the depth perception, like I said before, is not that great. Well, regardless of everything else though, it's just about the fact that you have to take yourself a bit too easy for this point. So, and also some occasional spider creatures that we have to easily need to take care of. So anyway, so I wonder what's... Okay, so we got an end though, but then again though, getting all the letters that represents Pac-Man, it seems kind of pointless because again, no bonus levels has been activated. So because of that though, yeah, going after Pac-Man's letters is pretty pointless, unless if you go for 400% completion, which like I said before, I'm not gonna do that. So either way though, so yeah, 2 worlds done, and I think we've only got about 3 worlds to go, technically speaking. So with that being said folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Pac-Man World for the Game Boy Advance version. Instead, we're going to be moving on to the 3rd world in this game, which appears to be the Space World, which we're only going to be going through 2 levels this time. So, I'll see you guys until next Saturday. Later, fellas.